Hey folks, I'm here in Cuba at the Jardines de la Reina, Gardens of the Queen. We're on day 2. I've seen a lot of wonderful sights. It's well worth the effort. I'm going to tell you more about it. Day 2 started the same way, up at 5:30 a.m. We had breakfast. I'd hoped to see more sharks. Today we got them. The mother boat had moved to the east side of Cayo Anclitas in the Piedra Grande Channel near Playa Jutia. It was a bit cloudy, but by the time we got to the first dive, it was a nice clear morning of 85 to 90 degrees. Our first dive was Cueva del Pulpo, Octopus Cave, near what our guides referred to as Cayo de la Piedra Piloto, or the Canal de Boca de Piedra Chica, or mouth at the end of the channel. This was south and east of the main boat. We were dropped into 25-30 feet of water on a high coral head. Near the top of the coral head is a small cave, reportedly with octopus. The plan was to head down to the sand in roughly 65 feet of water, move along the coral heads, and explore the cave at the end of the dive. Naturally, a couple of our reef shark companions came along to keep us company. At 65 feet, we moved along a low-profiled reef away from the main reef. As noted previously, the coral showed signs of distress in bleaching. Again, all video is shot with an iPhone 14 Pro. We finally got to the cave, which is hollowed out along the side of the reef. I got there a bit after most folks, so the water had silted up a bit. No octopus, unfortunately, but a nice view from inside the cave. We finished up hanging with some Nassau grouper and checking out the pillar coral. For our next dive, we were slightly west, more directly in the channel, on a reef called Las Rayas. We dropped down onto a sandy bottom at around 60 to 65 feet. This was a series of small coral heads patched between the sandy bottom and the main reef. I was running through some of the groove channels here when I saw this large ray buried in the sand under one of the coral heads. The 360 camera gave an interesting view. This again was a low-profile reef. There were a few more fish than I had seen on previous dives, like the schooling porkfish. I really tried hard to get more video of coral and fish. But on this dive, the reef sharks were even more numerous and way more curious. It was hard to move around without one sneaking up on you. This was a fun dive and one of my favorites. Our afternoon dive, we dove what turned out to be our most eastern dive, the Rompe Tarraya, or Broken Circle Net. This had a similar profile to the previous dive, a series of larger coral heads looming up from the sandy bottom. The first thing that grabbed us again was the sheer number of sharks. It was crazier than the last dive, more of them, and they clearly wanted something from us. It wasn't until later when I compared this location to previous dives of the day that I saw both this dive and our previous dive were very near another dive site we'll cover later called the Black Coral 2. This is where guys from Tender 1 on the first dive of this day were feeding the sharks lionfish that they had speared just for them. These guys are obviously still hungry and expecting a handout. I later moved up to the shallower part of the reef and tried to capture the schooling fish. This was another fun, shark-filled dive. Our last dive on this day was a night dive. It was very near our second dive in the main channel, just a tad shallower. We'd be diving along a sloping coral head at roughly 55 feet. This site was called La Trampa. We got there just as the sun went down. They suspended a strobe from the stern of the boat as a reference point. The visibility wasn't very good, so it didn't help all that much. I barely made out the shape of a shark in the distance early on, but I didn't see any more during this dive. The reef had a series of shallow, sand-filled canyons. I was hoping to see lots of fish cocooned and hiding from predators. I did feel a little guilty. By shining a light on them, they might get eaten. While I endorse the iPhone for underwater video, the 14 Pro still has focusing issues in low light, let alone with particulate matter in the water. I had to make serious adjustments to make this video work at night. I did catch a glimpse of this good-sized porcupine fish. As the dive went on, more and more of these copepods surrounded the lights. Some of the folks not wearing hoods mentioned the annoyance of them getting stuck in their hair and buzzing their ears. Occasionally, I just like to shut my lights off. It's a surreal sight just to watch other divers in the distance illuminating the reef. I also played with some blue lights, hoping to capture any creature with bioluminescent offerings. I did notice on all the black sea urchins this pentagram of dots. I'm not sure what they are. Besides the porcupine fish, I did see my only octopus of this trip, albeit briefly. So this concludes part 2 on dive sites in the Jardines de la Reina. More dives will be coming shortly. It is an interesting place to visit, and as you saw in this video, sharks were plentiful. Stay safe, my friends, and watch for part 3 soon. Remember, go explore, get wet,